You can't be serious, man. You cannot be serious!
Don, before I introduce our extremely special guest, what I thought might do is just put a quick call into Kate Save from Be Fit Food. And we'll just get an update on what she's doing, because we've had this theme going, trying to make people lose weight or be a little fitter. And so I'm going to try and ring her and just ask her. I hope she answers the phone. And if she does, I hope I know how to put it through onto the podcast. So here we go. Now, just a minute. Doc, you're going to have to help me here. Here we go. We're ringing Kate Save here. And now, what happens when she answers the phone? If she answers the phone.
Hello.
Now, Kate, just a minute. I'm going to make sure. Is this being recorded now?
Yeah, we can hear. Yep.
We can hear her?
Yep.
Can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
Right. Now, Kate, I'm sorry. This is impromptu and short notice. But I just want you to tell us what your plans are health-wise. And Don's here, and Doc James Stewart's here. Just tell us what's going on in the immediate future with Be Fit Foods, please.
So I guess for Be Fit Foods, what we're waiting for is for everyone to have a really lovely Christmas period and the festive season, lots of food, lots of drink, and then we are ready to go with a 2-week metabolism reset. So we know for most people, they set their New Year's resolution, and I'm sure if we asked people last year, did they actually achieve them, it's probably a no. Whereas our product is created to do exactly that, to get the 5.89 kilos off in 14 days. So that's what we're doing. We're helping Australia to get that Christmas kilos off and hopefully to avoid putting on Christmas kilos on top of COVID kilos. And that's really what Be Fit Food is about, changing your health from the inside.
And to access and to just be part of all this, they get the product either direct or from the... just tell us about that. Or where do you get it?
Yeah, so they're in 750 Woolworths stores at the moment, plus a handful of chemists and Richie's IGAs. But online, befitfood.com.au, so that's the easiest for home delivery all across Australia, except we're not in the Northern Territory yet. So, and there is the code that for the listeners of your podcast they can use as well. So if they go to befitfood.com.au, they can use a $25 discount code, so Serious25.
Now, Kate, I went to your head office, which is in Mornington Tyre Road. I think it's 49 Mornington Tyre Road, Mornington, and the range was so extensive. It was unbelievable because I go to the supermarket down the road. What is it? Benton Square. That's locally. So I do. But your range, I don't know why it's not in the supermarket because, as I said to you, it's extensive. It's not only there's soups. I got some protein snacks and also some drinks as breakfast, main meals, and whatever else. And
I bet you didn't pay for them, seeing
but hang on,
an extensive.
Because Samantha, who was on Saturday morning, she was there and she was very, very helpful. Because I've had other pre-cooked meals, and I'm not saying because you're on the phone, but it just goes through you like a dose of salt. Some of these pre-cooked.
Thank you, Don.
But the quality, your dim sims, I have not come across a piece of gristle at all in either of your dim sims.
You know what? My dad would probably get rid of me as a child because that's his recipe.
Yeah, but who does the quality?
Destroyed it.
Yeah, but who does the quality control? He might have come up with a recipe, but the quality is just outstanding. Is it because you freeze this stuff and it's got its taste when you actually thaw it and go to eat it?
That is definitely part of it. You get the higher nutrient content, and people used to think in the past that frozen was less of a product, but what it actually does is preserve the DNA of the food, the good bacteria on the food, because when you're eating refrigerated food, let's face it, if you're watching it get manufactured, delivered, go to the supermarket, you're collecting it. By the time you eat it, that food could be 10 to 30 days old and preserved with God knows what, gassed with God knows what, changing all the bacteria on the food, depleting the nutrient levels. But with frozen, we snap freeze the food. We preserve the DNA of the food. the good bacteria in the food. So it's actually about changing your body from the inside out as opposed from the outside in, which, the competitors might talk about, calories and carbs and sugar, and those things are all important. But if you don't nourish your gut from the inside, then you're not going to change your health.
Don's
what
not,
about,
you're not
what
asking
about,
any more
will
questions?
you shut up for a moment?
Don't
because
ask her any more questions, Don. I tell you, Kate, if I come down to the head office, I'll be backing my truck up. I want you to load it up for the extensive mention we've given you about Be-Fit Foods.
Where else,
we think it's fantastic. Go ahead, Don.
Where else, Kate? The range, I was blown away at your head office. Well, where else can you get a range? Are there any other outlets that have the range that you have at the head office?
Look, the head office has got 70 different SKUs, and so does our online store, so the Mornington office. But some of the Woolworths now definitely have 15 SKUs, and we are ranging into a handful of chemists and having whole four-door freezers. That's still a secret, so I will update you in 2023 when that's coming.
Okay, now listen, I went onto your website.
Any more questions?
Shut up, will you? Kate, I went onto your website. I'm not computer literate, but I got all these other people I looked for Be-Fit Foods, and I got, some other crowd. And I was going to plug into those, but that's not you. Why is there people above your website?
They piggyback.
Do they?
You're absolutely right. So what happens is people can bid on any words on the internet, on Google, right? And whoever's got the biggest bankroll bids the highest amount. So our words Be-Fit Food are very valuable in the competitors' eyes because we know our customers are searching for us. But if you've got really deep pockets, and some of these big companies like your Foods, My Muscle Chef, and the other ones that have got, the venture capital backing, they're spending up to $20 million a year in marketing, and they're going to be seen. They're going to be bidding on our ads and be able to do that. But you can go directly to our website. Just be careful what you click on. Make sure you actually go to befitfood.com.au, not an ad that you get sold for someone pretending to be us.
Well, Kate, that is the best question you've asked about piggybacking, unlike Gristle in the, what are they called? What are they
Dim
called?
Sims.
The South Melbourne dim sims, they're as big as the ones you get at the market at South
As big as
Melbourne.
your fat head. But that's a very good question about piggybacking. Go to Be-Fit Foods. Don't be mesmerised by the people at the top of the list. Now, Kate, all the best to you. Thank you very much for being part of this. As Ross Lyon got in touch with you, Don said he was overweight and that you could help him lose weight. I don't know if he's been in touch with you yet.
He hasn't been in touch,
No.
but I'm waiting on that call. I would love to help it.
He
Bobby,
hasn't-
who you guys may have spoken to, has lost 20 kilos in the last 3 months on Be-Fit Food. I can send you the before and afters, proof it.
Don't
but
send us
it's
anything else at
unbelievable.
all, Kate. Thank you. All the best to you, and thank you very much for taking the call.
Pleasure.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
That the same thing happens with me with the piggybacking. People, because of my reputation now, the big other companies that have business backing have paid for, if someone Googles Dr. James Stewart or medicinal cannabis or plant-based, you'll get all these other things pop up before me, and I'm about on page 3 or something because I can't afford to.
Really?
Yeah. It's pretty ordinary what they do. Yeah.
Now, Don, so there we are. We just thought we'd have to do that. I'm glad you didn't ask. How much, you'd think that we're getting paid to do that with Kate? Well, we want product, don't we? Did you go in and pay for any of that stuff? The gristle-free meatballs
No,
or whatever they're called?
beautiful fruit.
Jeez, you spit
Everything
some
was
shit,
frozen.
you just winding her up. Oh, I said never found any gristle in the, what are they called? The Dim Sims. Oh, yes, they're as big as my head, and I never found
they're
any.
as big as the ones you get at South Melbourne Market.
Oh, that's good size.
Yeah, they're big balls.
They're like footballs. Yeah, you got big balls. Now, Don, not often, or quite often, we speak to people, we have no idea who we're speaking to or why, but you rang me and you said, there's a man called Tim, I'm saying his name's Rath, but it might be Roth, but it's spelt Rath.
Rath.
Wrath.
Rath. Right, that's Tim's
Like
voice
Bath.
there, right?
Correct.
Tim Rath. You said, Don, you rang me and you said, Tim has a book out called The Footy Jumper Book, a pretty self-explanatory title. And you said he collects football jumpers. And I said, shit, how interesting would that be, Don? And you said, Well, he's bought a book out and he's selling it. And then you explained a bit about it, and I actually have looked through the book, and it is a fascinating history of how football jumpers have evolved over the...
Haven't you changed in the space of 30 bloody seconds? You were the most negative bastard because it wasn't your idea. Oh, no. Go.
I just said, how exciting would a book on football jumpers be? And then I got the book and I looked at it, and it is a fascinating insight into how football jumpers over the years and decades and centuries, if you like, have evolved. And it's a fantastic book, a hard-copied book, beautifully illustrated, and there is more information about football jumpers, and I have completely thought what a extraordinarily boring subject this would be to how fascinating it is, Don, so I'm giving it plenty. And I know nothing about Tim Rath. I know nothing about Tim Rath other than to say, welcome, Tim, to You Cannot Be Serious, and I'm going to in advance congratulate you on what looks like a fantastic pictorial on football jumpers over the years. How did you get involved in this and why?
Thanks, Sam. It probably started 20 years ago when I started collecting. I grew up in country Victoria and we moved around quite a bit from town to town, Dad being a teacher, and the footy jumper was the symbol of the town. And so we went from town to town, and it just had an affinity with me. And over the years I started collecting, and at one point I thought I should start photographing them. And so I started that process probably 10 years ago, and over the last few years in earnest I started to put the book together.
Now, the research that's gone into it, as I say, I've had a cursory glance at the book. There is photographs. Where did you get all the research and the photographs? And is there anything that you've missed in the book, because it's about the most extensive compendium of football jumpers? Is it only restricted to what we would call Australian rules jumpers?
Yes. Yeah.
And,
Sorry, Sam. I got them from all over Australia. So the book wouldn't have happened without the help of around 150 people around Australia. So through social media and other aspects, we were able to get in contact with them through Facebook and Instagram and those sorts of places. And we organised photo shoots in Brisbane and Perth, Tasmania, down in Hobart. And I went up to Sydney, we went to the Mallee, we went to the Wimmera, various places, and took the photos and got the stories behind the jumpers.
The stories are just absolutely riveting. There's a bloke called Bert Rankin now. He played at Geelong.
Yep.
How you got onto these jumpers. And I'm looking at one from the Carnival of 1927. Is it made of wool? And looking at the sleeves, it looks like it's got buttons on the sleeves that you can either make it, you button it up, so you've got a long sleeve Guernsey, you undo the buttons at the shoulder, and you've got a short or sleeveless Guernsey. Is that right, Tim?
Correct, Don. So you might have one sleeve on and one sleeve off.
He would have done that for sure.
But that one was found in a shipping container in Horsham, would you believe?
Really?
Yeah, so I went up there to photograph Jeff Burdett's collection. Jeff played with Essendon in the 70s.
That's right.
Briefly, because he had to go back to the family farm. And his wife's cousin had those in a shipping container. So it was a great discovery.
The other thing that fascinates me is I suppose the originality of the old jumpers. Nowadays, I think when I was in the trade, it was called sublastatic, where you did a print on the plastic, which they all seem to be now. These,
yep.
I call them plastic jumpers. But I go back to a jumper here, which there's a team that I support in the country called Sorrento. It's a lace-up Guernsey. It's in North Melbourne stripes, but the stripes are very thin. Instead of having the 3 stripes in white, which the jumpers have now, it looks like it's got 6 vertical white stripes and about 8 of the part. But across that, you've got the red sash, that is a thin red sash. The originality of these, do you find that, and even the typing of this Carlton emblem on the front of 1918, why hasn't those things just continued through the ages?
It's a very good question. I think over time, footy clubs become bored with their own jumper, is all I can think. And new regimes come in, and they decide that if the footy club's going through the doldrums, the first thing they probably look at is changing their emblem.
So they can sell more jerseys
Yeah,
to
or
get some more money in you.
They change the colours, or they change the design. That happens all the time.
So now, Don, and Doctor, we're speaking to Tim Rath, who has produced a book called The Footy Jumper Book. It is an extraordinary compendium on football jumpers. Most of the jumpers, so it goes from, I see Doug Wade has a jumper in here, number 23, yep, that's in here. I played with Doug in the early 60s, and we wore woolen, our jumpers were woolen, and after about 3 washes, you could hardly get into them. So they shrunk, yep, they did. And then they sewed. They had the numbers on flaps, and they sewed the flap onto the jumper, and then they they embroidered the number onto the jumper itself, and then they stenciled them. Then it's changed over the years. The Victorian jumper, Don, which I'm sure you wore several times with the big V, they had plastic numbers on them. So you're quite right about people wanting to stamp their own imprimatur on their club and changing the design. But I think I could speak for Don, and I say the hybrid jumpers that they make out now, the traditional colours of the jumpers, I don't know why they tamper with them. They do, because the doc said for commercial reasons. But you like to see the green, the brown and gold stripes of Hawthorn. You like to see the vertical hoops of Geelong, and the Carlton jumper. That you like them not to be taken out too much out of context. How have they changed over the years? Have you understood any of those questions, Tim?
Well, they've changed even from state to state. Seacombe over in WA, they had a very broad neck to their jumpers without any...
What, without a collar?
I'd had a collar of sorts, but not as pronounced as the Victorian one. It was probably climate-based, that it was warmer playing footy over there. And then the Victorian ones in the 60s, or up until the 60s, had
a placket?
Well, the
buttons.
buttons. Yeah. So that was probably to do with the colder climate. And then the long sleeves were a thing for a long time, particularly in the
50s?
Well, probably up until the 60s, really.
Right.
Particularly in the cooler climates. Again, West Australia probably did away with the long sleeves before we did.
The other thing that fascinated me in going back and looking at these old, I mentioned the lace-up, the material. Even whilst we were playing, we'd go to South Australia and we'd play South Australia, and they were wearing the lace-up. Now, that seemed to be a thing that's gone out. I remember my grandfather playing at Rutherglen in 1950, early 1900s, and here they all are with the lace-up, which is what, made of cotton?
Oh, various things over the years.
Canvas.
We
wore Geelong. I wore lace-up jumper at Geelong in the 60s.
Yep.
We tried them, but I didn't think there were any.
No,
there was no give in them. Yeah. They were like a straight jacket.
They were like canvas, and people could put their hands.
But they wore them in South Australia. I think every Sturt player had a lace-up.
That's
Guernsey.
right. There was teams that exclusively used lace-ups, and Sturt was one.
Now, Tim Rath, are they the jumpers, school jumpers in there? Are there VFA and VFL jumpers? Are there suburban jumpers? Are there all the AFL clubs jumpers represented in here, even the new clubs?
No. So it goes from 1880 through to about 2000.
Yep.
And we deliberately left out the modern iteration of the AFL.
I see. Yep. The new sides in.
Yep. So the West Coast and Freo and all that type of thing. So it's really more around the code itself. And yes, there's school jumpers. Yes, there's VFA jumpers, sandful jumpers, waffle jumpers, club jumpers from all over Australia, including Darwin and Alice Springs and places that, we don't see a lot of jumpers down here about.
Now, being innovative, it's very, very hard to be innovative. But I see one Guernsey, I suppose you call it a football outfit, Neil Craig, Norwood Football Club. It looks like a bodysuit. So the jumper looks like it's got a zip down the front, yet it's connected to a short. So it is, I suppose, a bodysuit. Is it a bodysuit as such, short sleeve, shorts, all in one, which is really quite innovative, isn't it?
Very innovative. And Neil has been known as an innovator over his entire footy career. And that was used in, what was the season?
Well, it's Rod Maynard. Now, he played for the Adelaide, the Crows, I think in their initial year when they first came into he was a backman, and he played for Norwood, came from Norwood. It's on page 55 if you want to know. I'm just doing a flick through and I've come across this. I find it really... Why hasn't something like that taken off?
Yeah, it's funny why they haven't done that, because you'd think in terms of opposition grabbing you, having a tight one piece would be, that's the least amount of possible material to grab.
That's why they had the lace-up hard to tackle.
Yeah.
Well, that's an interesting point you make, James, because Neil thought that, and that's why he did it. But what he found counterintuitively was that they tackled better. The teams that they opposed tackled better because they had to concentrate on grabbing the body.
Ah, right.
So it was
they knew they had to. Yeah, okay, go. Yeah.
You would think it's extraordinary, Don. We can speak about football jumpers in depth like this, but I notice I notice the forward has been written by Martin Flanagan.
Yep.
What is the significance of Martin doing that?
I
know who he is, and
yeah,
I know
so
he's a very good man. But yep.
We wanted to recognise football writer to give it the imprimatur, I suppose. And he's one of my favourite football writers, so we approached him, and luckily for us, he agreed. And
and the on the opening page, there's a woolen Hawthorn jumper and a woolen, I presume, a Collingwood jumper in the back, and it says here, a pair of early 1970s Guernseys from the Melbourne Sports Depot, who now you can buy with the specialised places where you could buy the jumpers, or could you? They weren't actually ready. You couldn't buy a lot of them in the multiple stores, could you? Or were they just selected sports stores that used to sell the jumpers in the early days? If that is a question.
I'm not sure that is more a statement, Sam. MSD was obviously one, and then in country areas, your bigger towns, you'd have your sports store that would stock the local footy team jumper, and maybe some VFL.
So just an item of interest for you. Back in our time, we started to wear these. The lace-up I'm talking about. Do you know that a player got his finger caught, and I think that was I don't know who the player was.
Robbie Flower.
Was it?
Yep.
He got his finger caught and either ripped the top off his finger or something under the lace of the Guernsey. Consequently, they were banned in Victoria from that time on.
Yeah, and subsequently in other states a few years later.
Tim, the other thing I'm a little bit suspicious of the AFL and the way they do things now. It seems to me that in all country towns they seem to emulate the colours or the designs of the AFL teams. Am I right in saying that, or is there still a little bit of originality or in the country with regard to football colours and the design of their jumpers?
I think there is still some. The Rushworth jumper, which is jumper number 21, is a magnificent black with a yellow hoop, a single yellow hoop, which I hadn't seen before.
What page?
That is page 109.
109.
So that particular design dates back, probably 100 years, I'd imagine. So there is still originality there, but you're right. There have been a lot of clubs that have taken on, the Port Power design or the GWS Giants design.
Even that jumper next door to it, it's called Teachers Football Club South Queensland. It's like the Footscray jumper, but instead of the red, it is maroon. And so, the hoops of Footscray substituted maroon for the red. That's unique as well. And it's also got the emblem of the club on the chest.
Yeah, the monogram. That is a ripper. One of my favourites.
And what about the cost of I realise there's collectors out there. How much would you value some of these jumpers at?
Well, some would be more than $10,000.
For one jumper?
Yep.
And in your research and your collection, could you do another edition? Are there more jumpers out there than what we actually see in this book?
Well, there's 320 in the books, Don.
320?
There are obviously 100 still in cupboards, out all over Australia, and we'd love to do another book.
I can say this, that I do a little speaking from a company that organises that, and they also sell memorabilia. And I know that Luke Hodges, did he play in 3 premierships? Well, I think he did.
Yeah,
Hawthorn,
Yep.
maybe 4. His original jumpers were on sale. I'm a bit averse to say how much they were in case he doesn't want me to mention it. They were on sale for over $200,000. The 4, I think it was 4 or 3. 3, how many premierships did he play in? I remember seeing them, they said, gee, that's good, you've got those, they're up on display. He said, yep, he said, they're for sale for that price. And you don't...
Are they the originals or copies?
No, he says they're originals, and I'm sure if you're asking that money for them, you'd have to have Luke give a certificate of authenticity from them. They still had the grass marks on them and all that sort of stuff, so they were looked to be pretty real. And if you could get one of Gary Ablett Senior's number 5 jumpers, could be worth $250,000 if he'd signed it. And so it is extraordinary, Don. Could I just say, you've the acknowledgement in the book, and there's a list of people there that's bigger than the telephone book. Where did you get it from the backline? Where did you get all those people from? What are they?
So they're collectors or individuals who have kept their jumpers over time that we've got in touch with, and we've photographed their jumpers primarily.
Yeah, I'm the jumper. I just don't want to make this about me, but I'm just saying.
Yep.
Leesy from LA Smash Repairs in Collingwood, who is the biggest memorabilia collector for Geelong Football Club out of anyone. He has my jumper I played my 300th game in, and my white boots, and he has them. And I've signed that, and there's a picture of me playing in it, so you can see that it is the actual jumper. It's not a hybrid or a knock-up or anything.
Yep.
And he's often asked, would he sell that? And he said he wouldn't sell it because I gave it to him. And so they're just even me on your football premiership jumpers, if you had them,
I've still got them.
Be worth a fortune.
The
if
other
you
thing-
wanted to put them on the market, Don.
Just looking at, also you've got team photographs. These are country teams, and I'm just looking at the physiques of these old country footballers. And let me tell you, they're as big, if not bigger, than what the players are today. And I would say that comes back to the fact that back in those days they were working manually on the farm, and consequently their muscle definition and their shoulder definition is just absolutely remarkable, whereas blokes nowadays have got to push weights, and it's a false sense of weight, I believe, because this is not an Orton, and these blokes would have been exceptionally strong, because when you're doing manual work, it's an all-over body preoccupation. But they're huge. Those blokes are huge.
Well, it's interesting you talk about that, Don. The Rushworth one we mentioned before, a guy called Tony Ford got in touch with us, and he wrote a piece that's in the book under the Rushworth jumper, and it talks about that in the 1930s, that whole team, Rushworth, were very successful during that period. They were fit, really fit, and they were strong. They used to cut down trees.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, so to your point, that's probably pretty accurate.
And I've got photographs of my grandfather who played up at Mara and Rutherglen back in 1900s, and they're big men. They are huge men.
Yep.
Yeah, big men, Don. Now, yes, they're very big men.
Bigger
because
than you, Johnny.
of
You were a
course.
wimp in comparison.
Sam, were you one of the first to wear the white shoes?
One of the first. I think Phil Carman was the first.
He was number 2. He was running second.
Well, I just said that, Don.
But what he did do was dye his hair before any other footballer. So there is a first.
Yep.
And we did
bet-
we did question his masculinity back in the early 70s.
Please, Don, I wouldn't get onto that subject if I was you. People thought you were gay for many, many years until I had to tell them that I would like to slag you, but not that there's anything wrong, Tim, with being gay, because Don's, I think, non-binary as we speak. He could be any fucking thing, you'd never know. So Tim, you might know the answer to these questions, but were there any numbers that players What was the least requested or least printed number? 13? Did people shy away from superstitious numbers? You probably wouldn't know that. Or I would have thought I wouldn't have liked to. I don't know why I wouldn't have liked to have worn a jumper with 13 on it. Isn't that ridiculous?
Yeah, that's a good question, Sam. No, I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah, go.
Well, numbers are a particular peculiarity of footy, aren't they? And we did write a piece on it, and it's around the use of the higher number and how our players traditionally, they get a number initially and then a lot of them move to the lower number.
Well, so like, for example, Polly Farmer, who to me was the greatest player I saw, was number 5, and then Gary Ablett Senior took over the number, not probably from Polly, but he was number 5. So number 5 at Geelong and number 23 at Hawthorn is Don and John Peck and Dermot Brereton and was Buddy Franklin. I mean, 23 would be probably the sought-after number at Hawthorn if you consider it. So it's interesting to know that people would follow the numbers. And you probably don't know the answer to this question, but when did sponsors' emblems start being and appearing on the jumpers? You know, plastered all over the jumper.
In our time.
Well, I'm just asking Tim, who might know better than you, Don. I remember Geelong, I don't know if you know this, Geelong has the longest running sponsorship of any football club in the world. Ford, a motor company, have sponsored Geelong for 90 years, I think.
Yep.
And that's the longest.
90 years?
I think so, Don. Whenever Geelong started,
it is.
Whenever Ford started building motor cars in Geelong, they put Ford on the jumper.
I thought Courage was the first at North Melbourne in the 70s.
No.
Courage breweries. North Melbourne were the first to go out and actually market themselves.
You're
and
talking
sell it.
about actually on the jumper.
Yes.
Sam's talking about
Geelong,
but not back in 90 years ago. They weren't on the jumper, but they certainly were a sponsor of the
Geelong
club.
have been on the jumper for longer than Courage ever have been.
Okay, now Tim, you've got St Kilda jumper here. I just flicked to a page.
Yep.
I'll ask you a question because I'm a smart ass. I know. St Kilda's colours were red, or gold, and black. Then they changed to the colours that they are now, which are red, white, and black. Why did they change their colours?
Yes, good question,
Well,
Don.
you could probably read the answer there.
Well, don't read it. I'll give
I'm just
you
filling because
Is the answer in there, is it?
The answer is the fact that they changed it because the Kaiser's colours, they went to war and they were fighting against Germany, and Germany's colours were red, gold and black. So they changed the colours of St Kilda to what they are today.
And I've had this discussion with you off air, Don, because we're not allowed to mention the word, but Essendon had a jumper it was black with the red sash.
Yep.
And they at one stage were called
No, we won't.
I won't say it, Don.
Bloodstained.
The bloodstained. You're not actually allowed to say the word, but it's extraordinary that did exist. And if you actually research that, you have to go a long way into the depths of it to say that they mention that word, because it's now precluded from all conversation. Although black Americans are allowed to say it on a daily basis, but Caucasians aren't allowed to say it. But that is extraordinary that jumper was called that all those years ago. Now, Tim, I notice we're giving you a lot of credit. Mr. man's name I can't pronounce, Gigants.
Andrew Giggs to his mates.
Giggs. So Giggs and Rathy, or Rathy and Giggs. What's Mr. Giggs do?
So he's a writer. So he's done quite a few
You've given him
publications.
very little publicity. You've just taken all before you here, Tim. You should have mentioned, look, I wrote this book in conjunction with Giggs.
That's a very good point, Sam.
No, it's not.
So I've known Giggs for many years, and it just so happened that we got together for this one, and it's been a really successful partnership, and we've worked well together. And as Don alluded to before, there's probably enough material for a second book. So we.
Okay, where do we get this? Now, this is to me, this is something I'd buy. How much is it? Where can I get this book from, Tim? And is it online? I suppose they do all online.
Well, he's about
stuff
to answer all that.
So sportingnation.com.au is my company, and that's where I'm selling it primarily at the moment.
Sporting what?
Sporting Nation.
Sporting Nation. Right.
.com.au.
What about bookshops?
There's some bookshops. I'm gradually hitting them up at the moment. So the Avenue Bookstore in Albert Park, the Village Store in Middle Park, Clementine's in the city, and then there's...
Avenue in the middle, a very good bookstore in
it's
Albert
a great,
Park.
great
Avenue.
one.
Yep.
This will be a fantastic Christmas present.
Now, how much is it?
$90.
It's mate. It is a hard copy book.
good coffee
and
table
as
book.
I say, when Don said we had a man in to speak out footy jumpers, I thought, yeah, well done, Don. That's
What
the only
about this
guest
jumper?
you've ever
I'm
got
just-
in. But it's a fantastic book, and I actually recommend it.
What about
Thank you,
Littlehampton Football Club? It's a grey Guernsey with a red sash, thin red sash. The cuffs are red, the collar's red. That is the most unique jumper. Grey football jumper.
Well,
1968.
in actual fact,
Jeez, that's a
Don, it's meant to be light blue, but it looks like a Hugo Boss inspired jumper. It is so good. It's one of my favourites. It is.
Well,
It is.
Bro, the colours, I just...
That's
why
amazing.
can't we have these...
Exactly.
Why
I think-
can't
Yeah.
these colours remain traditional?
Yeah, grey with a thin red stripe. You'd like that, Don.
Well,
today,
why
would
not?
you?
It's unique.
Yeah,
It
that's you.
represents that colour.
That represents you, grey.
Yeah, but listen, Hawthorn colours are brown and gold as shit house, but they're traditionally Hawthorn,
Oh,
and
that's
you
a-
go with the
Well,
the
there's
colours.
a nice how do you do, Don.
Well, they are.
Colours that
You'd
made
never
you...
wear brown and gold.
Only in my underwear. Colours that made you famous, Don. Colours that made you famous, and you've trashed the fucking. Oh, seriously, you're a tosser. Yeah. No, Tim, I don't think there's any more questions we can ask you about jumpers. Suffice to say, thank you very much for coming in at short notice. You and Giggs have done a fantastic job. I hope people, if you want something for Christmas and you want to...
Even after Christmas,
might
go
be a
out
bit
and
late
buy
now,
this.
seeing there's only 3 days to go. But it's a really great publication, and thanks very much for coming in.
Thank you, Sam, for the opportunity. Appreciate it.
Don, any other final announcements?
Just say thank you.